All right, part two of my busy day. We have landed at Reeves Stadium. Tommy Contenta, head assistant, is joining me, pinch hitting for Mr. DeMarco, who'll be back with us next week. So a tough one to say the least. They put up a whole lot of points. It started good early, but then W&J just, things got away from me. So let's recap that loss to W&J. Coach.
Yeah, the offense, they came out of the gates. Our offense came out of the gates swinging. Two nice drives, a big, nice long touchdown pass.
Right.
You know what I mean? That got the crowd into it, got them going. And defensively, we just found ways to hurt ourselves. You got to cover people. You got to play sound football and
block and tackle.
Yeah, block and tackle. When things are going downhill, you got to find a way to stop the momentum and get it back in your favor.
Look, Allegheny Gators this week. We've talked about the Carnegie Mellons, the Grove Cities. This is a gauntlet of a schedule. But you just have to keep thinking the next 60 minutes.
Absolutely.
What are some of the improvements that you have seen, even though it's not wins and losses, from those 2 days in the summer to where we are right now?
Yeah. You know what? When you have the youngest starting roster in the PAC conference, right? When you have the youngest, we have the youngest. So we're starting almost all sophomores and freshmen right now. When you're starting those type of kids, you're looking for the little improvements. And what you see is, some guys that we had to get guys in the right position. So, because you don't get all summer with them like you do in high school when they're younger. We sorted that out through camp. Now we got guys we feel plugged in where they need to be. And now it's just getting reps. They need a ton of reps at what they're going to be doing in a handful of defenses, a handful of offensive play calls. And now guys are starting to just play faster. That's what we're wanting to see. They're playing football at a lot faster pace.
So the question is, how do you keep them up on the hill, college hill? Because you have lost some athletes who've moved on to Division II and starting at Division II. So the skilled players, you're getting them, but how do you keep them here?
Yeah. You know what? One of the things just about keeping them is, you can only do so much if guys want to move on, if there's a better financial situation or, family situation, that the reasons why you lose kids.
Right.
But you can only keep them if they're bought into the program and what you are doing as a program, if they see the benefit as a whole. And Geneva's always been more than just what happens on the football field. It always has been. Our best years, our worst years. And guys that buy into the team concept, that's who you're looking for. If it's a guy that's more about his individuality, he's going to find a problem at a lot of places, not just Geneva College, if things aren't going well.
They have such a wonderful faith-based curriculum here. Let's just focus on the school a little bit and how so many people, alum, have gone on. These men and women have done incredible things, and it all really begins here up on the hill at College Hill. The classroom, so important. So if you really want to have that next step ready to take a giant leap for you once you graduate, this is the place.
Absolutely. Well, very strong programs. And I would say, what do you want to get in a job in? Where do you want to get placed? What do you want to do for the next 40 years of your life? We're one of the only schools that actually have a nationally accredited business degree and a nationally accredited engineering degree. So you can get in, get out in 4 years. We have a 3+1 program in business that hardly anybody has in the nation, where you can get your undergraduate in 3 years and you can get your MBA in your 4th year. So we get a lot of kids for those specialized programs like that. And a lot of people in Beaver County don't even know that those opportunities exist. And the big thing is getting the word out. Now, you will be surprised, and I know you already know, you're around all the time, but you'll be surprised. I mean, if you walk around Western PA, you run into Geneva alumni everywhere.
All over the place.
And it's, my neighbor's son dates so-and-so, or, I went there in the 90s, I went there in the 80s. And I mean, it is a bigger community, a bigger network than what you think.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen what it's done for my brother-in-law, John Manzetti, who's gone on to do every incredible thing in business. Met my sister here, their journey, which is now over a half a century in holy matrimony. I just absolutely love Geneva College, but especially this time of year. But you know as well as I do, and Coach would be the first to say, got to start winning some football games here. It'll be nice if that happens. I don't think you're that far away, even though there's been some lopsided losses here. When you talk about youth, anything is possible, but you got to get them to start buying in. And I think losing and winning are most that fine line. And if you could just get going a little bit and get a season behind you where you get more wins than losses, then you take that next step and it kind of becomes a tradition. And it's almost as fluent, sadly to say, as losing is. Winning can really solve a lot of things and create a winning tradition.
Yeah, and I think that's the young thing. We talked about, or a great thing is you talked about having a young team. We talked about having a young team. And thing about that is you see, and I would say the difference is you see guys that are buying into what we are telling, what we're selling, however you want to put it, what we're talking about. Right now, we have guys that have a lot of fight. They think they are going to win the next game. It doesn't matter who it's against. No matter what the score was last week, they're very good at having a blank slate, and we're on to the next one. They're looking forward to playing the Gators this week, and so are we.
Listen, so you were a quarterback who could throw the football. Mr. DeMarco looks at football in a different way, and I had people come up to me all the time and talk about his offensive game plan. I'm like, when he was winning year after year in a massive way, no one ever complained.
Yeah, right.
They loved to watch the ground and pound, right?
Yeah.
But now, obviously, people question, as they do everywhere. So you've got Devontae Adams, who now goes to the Jets, right? Cooper leaves Cleveland, goes to Buffalo. And Christopher Russo, who I'm a huge fan of, and he's in the Radio Hall of Fame. He's been doing it at a high level for many years. Obviously, Odyssey, that brand, WFAN, many years ago. Now he has his own channel on Sirius Satellite Radio. He probably said the most prolific thing that I have heard in recent days. These wide receivers are great, but if you look at some of the big ones, including Devontae Adams, who is a star, and I can't wait to watch him on Sunday night against the Steelers. And of course, the reason I root for the Jets because of Joe Namath here, not against the Steelers, of course. I love Aaron Rodgers, maybe one of the best to ever throw the football. But if you look around the league, a wide receiver in catching the football is not the only way to win.
Yeah.
If you put too much stock into these wide receivers, you start going down the line. Diggs now in Houston, couldn't get it done in Buffalo. Adams went to play with his college roommate, Derek Carr, for the Raiders. They didn't get it done. So who's to say it's going to happen with the Jets? Throwing the football with consistency and accuracy, even though Aaron Rodgers is one of the best, as was Joe Namath, not always. They only both have one. It's nice to have a Super Bowl, but there's more to the game than throwing the football.
No doubt. Listen, I'm a firm believer there's a lot of great ways to lift weights. There's a lot of great ways to run defenses. There's a lot of great ways to run offenses.
Right.
And I am a guy, what's the best way? The Geneva College football way. If you're at Geneva College, you got to buy into what we're doing all around, whether it's special teams, offense, defense, off season, right? If you're at New Brighton High School, you got to buy into what McCouga's doing, offense, defense, off season. There's a lot of great ways to do it, but when you get all the guys heading in the same direction, that's the right way to do it. It doesn't matter to the offense and defense. And I will say one thing also. Triple option football, I love it. I like to run the ball back in the day a little bit too. But, I mean, no one's complaining about Army and Navy right now. This is the first time they're both ranked since, what did they say, the 60s?
Long time.
You know, and then,
I think Mr. Staubach was playing quarterback for Navy.
Absolutely. So when you got the right guys in the right spot and you're heading I mean, believe me, those guys know what they're doing in the offensive room. It can be a very potent offense.
Listen, I love it. I love all the moving parts. And when I was doing play-by-play, it made you stay awake.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed it. Now, we've got Power Bowser Friday Night Football, of course, brought to you by people like Coons Market, Allegheny Health Network, Highmark, M7, Parmore Stores. Love them all. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Pine Richland, John Ladon, Al Equipa, played at Robert Morris, going to visit him tomorrow. Art Walker Jr., N.A., newest father, love him. Back in the glory days of Rhino, we always did stuff with him, my guys from Rhino Production. So looking forward to that. Pat Carey, North Hills tomorrow. But this is why I like to travel around, because I get little bits and pieces that make it such a good recipe. And that is, you told me Pine Richland's got some Geneva guys up there.
Yeah, you know, Frank Hernandez, one of my very good friends, close college teammate, was an All-American nose guard here. He's the principal in the school. And, you know, I was his first call outside of his family when he got his doctorate. And he said, "Hey, it's Dr. Hernandez to you from now on." And I said, "Okay, Frank, I'm not going to tell you what I called him, but, you know, we had a nickname for him in the locker room. And that's what he's always going to be to me."
Right.
You know, Kenny Barrett, who was a unbelievable outside linebacker here, still very involved. His daughter's actually a freshman here at Geneva now.
Nice.
You know, Dr. Dave the cellist. Dave played corner here with me, and that's a Blackhawk guy right there. And I mean, there's a couple other ties in, but you know, that is a great program. You look at Central Valley, it's the same thing. Half their coaching staff went here. Mark even went here. I don't know if you know that. So,
I was with him earlier.
I mean, there's tons of tie-ins, and like I said, you get out there in the county, you start seeing
But Coach, this is what we need to do. And I know Gino wants to do it. And I love Gino. And Gino is one of the most successful and loved coaches in the history of football in this Commonwealth. No matter where you go, you mentioned Gino DeMarco. They know who you're talking about. But these Beaver County athletes, maybe I'm a little selfish. I just would like to see more of them matriculate here, or at least come and see, especially those who are wrapping up their senior season. take a look at what you have here to offer, because you got room. And I don't care what anyone says. There's nothing like mom's cooking.
Yeah.
And more importantly, playing in front of your hometown fans.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. And nobody knows more than you coming from New Brighton.
Absolutely.
So talk about that experience.
No, right. Obviously, I know last time we talked, a couple weeks ago, we had 13 kids from the Penn Ohio game come and play at Geneva. We ended up 13th in the nation. There's a lot of good football talent in Western PA, Eastern Ohio. That's our backyard right there. Especially Beaver County, right? We got off, I think we had 10 kids, which is actually a good bit if you look at the numbers of guys that are going on and playing college football come in this freshman class. The Pennsylvania promise that Geneva offers has really helped, and we're hoping that continues to grow. I've got a lot of phone calls from guys looking to come home, transfer in. So, don't want to give any names away in case anybody's watching this, but we're hoping that continues to happen also. Sometimes guys go and look, and next thing you know, where they went, the grass wasn't greener, and they want to come back home because they know mom has some good cooking.
Listen, I remember back in the 70s when the program was going through tough times, and all of a sudden they had a massive bit of resurgence, and Coach Sullivan comes in, and Gino picked up where he left off. And the thing that turned the tide is exactly what you said. Just a few of those really prime 5-star athletes who went somewhere, and maybe they did make the cut, but they wanted to come home.
No doubt.
Because they remembered Friday Night Lights, the community thing. And the next thing you know, one or two sprinkled into the roster, boom. The lights were on brighter than ever on college.
No doubt. I still talk to guys, Mikey Holleran, that's somebody I grew up watching. We both live in Brighton Township now, but unbelievable. Melvin Cobbs. You got guys from Western PA. I mean, these are guys that when you're local, you grow up, you know the name, you're idolizing those guys. We had guys come back, Liam Gibson from Beaver, unbelievable player. He transferred in this season. He's flip-flopped back and forth between offense and defense. And, guys like that come home, it really puts a message out there to other guys.
All right, so I'm doing some of these throwback coaches, and even though I talk to Gino each and every week, we're kind of both throwbacks at this point, but I still feel as young as ever, and I am literally idling high all the time, just excited to talk football, and I love what we're doing at Odyssey. But I've been asking some coaches recently who were their idols growing up. You were at the chain link fence just wanting to get a glimpse of them as those cleats went from the field to the gravel or the concrete back to the locker room with chin strap unfastened. Who did you idolize growing up in New Brighton?
Growing up in New Brighton, I would say some of the first guys I remember Lee Lavelle, the Lavelle brothers. I have a step cousin, Johnny Book. He played quarterback and he ran around and made things happen. That's kind of who I built my game after, and you put your own flair to it, but we both played for Coach Grieco. Listen, Paul Burdick had speed, guys that, I was probably midgets and they were in high school, but other guys, that 94, 95 team, you had the Halls, you had the Rebar, you had Fath. Fath, you could just say Fath, and there was a bunch of them that could play football, Timmy and Paul. And there's so many you can't even name. That team was absolutely loaded. And the crazy thing is almost all of them ended up here at Geneva in the long run.
Listen, I love Paul Fath. Paul Fath is a folklore to me. He's everything, the gentle giant. And I heard about he's at Pitt, and one day he says, I want to go home. And he just walked back home, I heard, and next thing you know, he ends up continuing here. But I have to ask you, I really believe that 95 team, Joe Ursita, they win the Whippio championship. If things work in a little bit of a different direction for Fath, he's playing on Sundays.
Oh, no doubt. Paul Fath was probably, for a man his size, one of the hands down the best athletes I've ever seen play.
Talk about him a little bit.
Paul Fath, he was massive for that era, and he's playing linebacker. I remember him grabbing a guy from Aliquippa, and there was no horse collar tackle back then.
No.
It looked like the guy was going to break free. He hits a seam, and Paul Fath reaches out one hand and just literally, it looked like he threw the guy 5 yards in the opposite direction. It was unbelievable. Listen, absolutely unbelievable.
I remember some of those MAC matchups between Aliquippa and New Brighton. They were legendary, absolutely legendary. Now, let's talk about your thought process, working with Gino, game plan, what some of the things you want to accomplish before this year is up. Go ahead.
Yeah. So honestly, it's how do you become solid on every play? How are you doing the little things better when we come in and we watch film, we watch the offense, we watch the defense, and we're talking about how do we become sound? And that's what you want to do with a young team. You want to limit the big plays. So you're playing consistent, and you blow coverage. Well, how many reps do we need to get each one of those young guys that doesn't happen? And the potential's there because they'll show you they're making breaks on balls. We are getting after the quarterback, offensively, and you go down and you have a 11 play, 80 some yard drive. I mean, the potential is there. It's just consistency with them.
Well, it all begins this week. Tell me about Allegheny a little bit, then we'll let you go.
Allegheny is a team where, they've had some change at quarterback. They play a couple different guys there. They bring back a lot of their offensive line. They lost their best receiver to a 1AA team, but they play football hard. They play hard. I would say they can relate to us in a little bit where it doesn't matter who's out there on the field. They get after you, and you better be ready. So we're looking forward to it.
All right, listen, I can't thank you enough. And we miss Coach, but he'll be back. It's taking a little time for himself, but he will be back with us next week. And this is Tommy Contenta, the pride of New Brighton, and the head assistant here at Geneva College. Off to your alma mater. And the reason I want to say one more thing, you were on the winning side of that little brown jug game. Judge Mancini, who was coaching in Beer Falls at the time, just reminded you of that. And Coach Mooney, wish you the best of luck. Really love what you're doing. It's going to take some time, but I know you'll get back to some winning ways for Beaver Falls. But for this week, we get to bask in the glory because New Brighton, we got the jug back, I think, for the first time since 2017.
It's been a while.
It has been. What was that game like?
Oh, listen, we both basically played for the de facto conference championship my senior year. My senior year, we actually lost the little brown jug. We had the lead. We fumbled the ball through the end zone. And it was on a Monday night because it was September 11th. Ooh. And the stadium was packed. We played at Beaver Falls. It was packed. And Justin Shiro, Dane Williams, us, Weston Lambert. It was a great matchup. We both ended up tying and sharing the conference championship because we both had to play 2 games in 1 week.
So when you won the game. Okay.
I won in my junior year.
Yeah, so the judge, when you brought it up the other day.
Yeah, so I ran into Judge Mancini, and I've known him for a long time. I grew up basically as an adopted child to the Kasperiks in some ways, and vice versa. And those are cousins of his, right? So Judge was always over, and you had the New Brighton and Beaver Falls thing going back and forth. I ran into him at my daughter's kindergarten, orientation, and open house. And he was there for his granddaughter. And he said, "Hey, it's Jug Week." And I said, "It is. It's Jug Week." And he's like, "I won't forget his last year coaching at Beaver Falls. We beat them. It was like a 1-score game." And the next year, it was the same thing.
They didn't play Beaver Falls when I was in school. What's the brown jug? What's the significance of it?
So the brown jug's filled with, there's like 2 or 3 now because it's been played so much. They write the scores on it for year to year. And then it's tradition. Whoever wins, you got to take, if it changes schools, you got to take it to that school. The captains and the coach personally, and then the new owners of it take it down to the river, empty out all the old jug river water, and then fill it back up. Yeah, and a couple of our O linemen drank it our senior year. It was pretty disgusting. Gotta be honest with you, but you know how offensive linemen are.
Listen, you've never lived until you've taken a dip in the river. I've done it, and that's how you get baptized in Beaver County football. He's the best, Tommy Contenta. Don't forget, Coons Quality Food Sports Report Saturday and Sunday morning. We got that Coons Market here in Hopewell. Stop in all the Coons Markets. We got that giant 2-day sale underway. Great savings, wonderful opportunity. The shelves are stocked, and we've got the best employees around. Then, of course, the Coons Market Black and Gold Sunday show coming up this week right after local news at 11. And there's always more sports at 93.7thefan.com.